we are going to talk about how maybe a car could actually set you back into purchasing your dream home, and no one is really talking about that. And this is very intentional. Do give me a like if you feel like this is ridiculous and I'm filming this in a car in a parking lot right now, but I will be getting ice cream and a poutine after this so that, you know, there's some merit of being in a car, right? So I'm pretty decent with my money, I would say. Saving wise and credit card and finding the good deals and stuff like that, I would say I'm pretty good about it. So today I want to share a little bit with you about my mindset on whether someone should buy or lease or finance a car. For a lot of people, the logical reason for getting a car is to go from A to B, right? So technically 2006 Corolla should be perfectly fine, but the reality is that a lot of times we have things that are in the back of our minds that really influence which car we end up purchasing. So for example, things like social status, right? That comes to mind. So things like, you know, showing up in a fancy car when you pick up your first date, or just knowing that, oh, having this car means I'm at a certain league in this society and things like that. So the second thing, of course, is lifestyle. So for example, if you are someone who loves to go camping or into the whole van life thing, so then maybe you're thinking of getting an off-road car, but honestly, how often do you go off-roading? I mean, most of us day to day, we drive to our work, and obviously we don't work at a campsite. So, and then the last thing I can think of is also your money mindset. Like, where is your mind at when you are making a decision to buy a car? So for some of us, like myself, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking like, okay, what kind of gas does this car take? What is the maintenance like? I want to spend as little as possible on this car, because truly to me, it is a little bit about A to B and also just being comfortable in it and making sure it is reliable. Let's say you finally decided on what car to get and that you are now sitting in front of the car salesman and figuring out which option to go with, whether you should buy, finance, or lease the car, and it's time to talk money. So when you are going into such a conversation, you really need to know how much you can spend. Let's say whatever income it is, 50% goes towards your needs, 30% goes towards your wants, and then 20% goes towards your saving and investment. Looking back at how much you make every single month and start budgeting and seeing how much you can actually afford will be super important, because when you're at that seat, you don't really have time to figure out if you can afford it, because I'm pretty sure that salesman is going to try to push you to get that car locked in right then and there. So go ahead of time knowing how much you're willing to spend and then go from there. Usually these car leases and finance terms, they do start at like a minimum of 3 years. I've seen them go up to like freaking 5 years or 6 years, which is nuts, just paying this amount for 6 years. But that's something to keep in mind. And the last thing is also to consider is, do you see yourself taking a loan in the next 3 to 5 years, or for however long you plan on taking the car loan? The reason is that when you do have extra debt, right, it really impacts how much you can borrow afterwards. So for example, if you're looking to get a mortgage, having a car loan of like 50,000, let's say you're going to get a luxury car, then that really impacts how much you can get for your home. So keeping that in mind, then you can kind of work backwards and see, okay, is this the right time to have a car loan? You know, if you're looking to purchase a place, then maybe having more debt is not the best place to be if you want to save up some of that credit for later instead. So maybe the alternative is to just buy a used car outright versus getting a brand new car. It's time to take a look at what the 3 options are. So the first one, the easiest, of course, is to just buy the car outright. So meaning there are no monthly payments, there are no down payments, and you can basically drive it as much as you like. The second option is to lease the car. So essentially what it is, it's kind of like car rental is how I would put it. So you're essentially making a monthly payment to essentially rent the car for that fixed duration. So you still do have to do the maintenance, you still have to of course fill in the gas and stuff like that, but also keep in mind that there is a maximum mileage. So meaning that if you drive over that mileage during that fixed period, you are then liable to pay the fees associated with any of the extra distance that you've incurred. So for example, if you set it where, you know, within the terms, I can only drive up to 24,000 kilometers. So for any kilometers after, they are going to bill you. So that's something to consider. And as well, if you're someone who likes to modify their cars, then maybe leasing is not the right thing for you, because you do have to return the car back into its original state. So let's say you swap out, I don't even know, like if you tint your windows and things like that, you got to undo all of that. If you swap something out within your car, you got to return it back. So all of that labor, unless you know how to do it, is something that you have to pay for to get the car back to its original stock state. So the last one is, of course, to finance your car. So what that means is that essentially you are making monthly payments to pay off this entire car for a duration of time, and by the end of it you do get full ownership of the car, and of course any maintenance and stuff like that you would still take on. But obviously this option is a little bit more expensive than buying outright, just because you are paying the interest rate in order to get this loan to purchase this car. This is a good option though if you don't have the hard cash right up front, like $30,000 for instance, to buy the car. Then I think this is a great option. But of course the best option is always to buy with cash, because you are not paying any interest at all, and you also have room for taking out a larger loan later on if you do decide to do that as well. It's time to take a look at the cost. So how much does it actually cost to buy versus lease versus finance a car? So I have my trusty notes here, of course, because I don't remember a single number. But I'm also going to have it on the screen as well, so you can take a look and follow along. We're going to use a RAV4 as an example, because this is apparently one of the most popular cars and most sold cars in America of 2022. So let's say if you were to do, let's just put out a condition out there, right? Let's say you're going to do a 4-year term, okay, and you are going to put a $5,000 down payment so that you're not taking out a huge loan. But again, $5,000 down payment I would say is pretty significant for a car that's like maybe only $30,000-$40,000, right? So take out a lease for a Toyota RAV4 for 4 years, $5,000 down. Your monthly lease payment is going to be $466, okay? But do keep in mind with these calculators, you'll see how they default to the weekly or the bi-weekly, because obviously, psychologically, when you do see that smaller number, when you think about it like that, like, yeah, it's not that much, but when you think of it in like the scale of a single month, that's quite a bit. For a lease, it's $466 a month for 4 years, brings it up to a total of $22,368. But don't forget, you also put that $5,000 down already. So we are looking at around $27,000 for 4 years on a lease, where you don't even keep the car afterwards. So you got to think of doing this again after 4 years. So the second option is to do a finance. So financing, again, just to recap, financing means that you do get to keep the car after 4 years. You're just basically extending the length and doing a monthly installment so that it's not as much of a burden to pay everything up front. So there is interest. So to finance a car like a RAV4, it basically costs about $827 a month. So you can see that it is doubled, almost doubled the lease. So you would think like, oh my God, that is quite a bit. You're right, it is quite a bit. But if you spread it over 4 years plus the $5,000 down, you are basically paying $34,696 to own the car after 4 years. And lastly, if you were to buy the car, it is just a straight up $39,000 to buy out the car. So with that said, the difference between finance and buying the car is around $4,000 to $5,000 or so. You might think it's not a lot, but if you think about it, a car is only like $40,000 and you're almost paying 10% of it just towards interest. So it's actually quite a lot. And if you think about, again, like what I mentioned before, having a car loan does impact your ability to get a mortgage. And then if you have student loans, that's another set of debt that you may have that basically lowers the amount of mortgage that you can get. So all of these things do factor in. One of the things about financing and buying out is that you do own the car afterwards. So you do have the ability to sell the car after. So, I mean, when I look at the secondary market for a 4-year-old RAV4 at the moment, it is around 20,000 or so, which is not bad. So however, like a lot of things, the longer you keep something, the more worth it is. So for example, if you do keep a car for like 7 to 10 years, for instance, then you're much better off doing that versus leasing a car 4 years after 4 years after 4 years, right? Because 4 years is already $27,000. So you're basically paying like almost $80,000 just to rent a car for a decade, right? Versus here, you know, 40,000 straight, that's it. And you get to keep it for as long as you can, or you can sell it and get some money back. Another thing to mention when you are owning a car is that there are also costs associated. So things like your maintenance, your gas, your parking, insurance, all of those things, they all add up as well. So, and I also want to leave out you with a note is that, you know, car salesman's job is to sell you a car, right? They sell you a car because they make a commission off of it, right? So obviously they want to get you into the highest tier car. You know, they want you to get on a lease so that you would become a repeat customer versus a one-time customer who's buying a car outright, right? Their goal is not to look out for you and get you the best deal, right? Their goal is to basically get you locked into the most expensive car. And of course, at the 3-year mark, they're going to give you a call and be like, hey, you know, you have a year left, you know, why don't we get you out of that lease and put you into a brand new car, right? Like, why don't we do that? And just make sure that you are the consumer at the end of the day. You are the one who is liable for all of the monthly payments that are going to happen. So be sure to know exactly how much you can afford, what car do you actually need versus want, and also thinking ahead, a little bit ahead as well, like what are some other loans that you are planning on taking on, and if taking that other loan is a much higher priority than having a car, then maybe reconsider just buying a used car altogether versus leasing or financing a car instead. So one last thing I do want to wrap up is used cars. I know used cars have its own market, which are great. I think used cars are fabulous. They are, you know, you get a better deal and things like that. But one thing I do want to note is that if you're getting a used car, please do not lease or finance a used car, okay? That is like one of the things I absolutely do not support, because this is already a depreciating asset and now you're paying interest on a car that's already depreciated and that you are making monthly payments on this thing, right? That like if you're at a point where you have to finance or lease a used car, that car is either too luxury for your lifestyle or that you can't actually afford it. Like, it's just not possible. Like, if you just think in perspective, like a used car is about $10,000, $15,000, right? And then you're putting $400 a month towards this thing. Like, it is absolutely not worth it when it's already been several years old, right? So the thing is that, I mean, again, this is not financial advice. I am just some random person on the internet looking out for you. But, you know, with that said though, at the end of the day, it is up to you. And I know that buying a car is not just a money issue, it is also an emotional thing for everybody, right? Because you've got, again, like I said, the social status bit, your mindset going in, and also the lifestyle you want to have and all of that, right? Practicality, there's so many factors into a car. But as someone for me who I do live a very practical life, I'm always thinking like, what is the cost of maintaining this? You know, what value am I using this? Am I getting this car because I go camping once a year? Am I getting this car because I actually need this car to go off-roading to get to A, B, and C, right? So things like that. So that said though, thank you so much for watching. I mean, this is a bit ridiculous of me in a car filming, but you know, why not? And I'm gonna jump into the clip of the ice cream and the poutine that I got, and have a very wonderful day. Bye y'all.
It's actually split in two. Yeah.